This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
I hope that you all had a fantastic and safe holiday weekend and hopefully some fun betting the NFL as well. We're going to try to close things off on a high note here with Monday Night Football with the Denver Broncos hosting the Cleveland Browns in Denver. Weirdly fun game for this one. We're going to break down my thoughts on the spread total in this game, outline a play I'm looking to fade based on the betting markets of FanDuel Sportsbook and my favorite bets overall at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I'm a managing editor for FanDuel Research, here to break down my thoughts on the Browns at the Broncos for Monday Night Football as we try to close things out on a high note here across week number 13. We'll dive into all that here in just 1 second, but first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. Back to our typical schedule for this week with college football on Wednesday, NFL on Thursday, and of course, NFL player props on Friday. Tomorrow we'll go game by game across week 14, letting you know where I'm seeing value in the initial odds at FanDuel Sports. But to get those shows as they're posted, search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts, hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review over there. And of course, you can find all these shows on our brand new YouTube page as well. Go there, hit subscribe, leave us a thumbs up, and turn on notifications to get notified as we go live each and every weekday. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or if it's at FanDuel.com/RG, call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look here at the betting odds for tonight's game at FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, Broncos favored by 6.5, and the total in this game is sitting at 41.5. Some slight movement this morning as it was 5.5, but it was just up to -122. So frankly, it's a pretty similar odd right now, despite the fact that it moved across a semi-key number of 6 in this one. I am very much in line with the market for both of these numbers. My model has the Broncos favored by 6.8 points. So again, in line at 6.5 there. And I have a total of 42.6. So slightly lean towards the over, but that's also -115 at FanDuel Sportsbook. So I'm going to wind up staying away from both those markets for today. What I do want to keep in mind, though, is that my model views the Broncos as being actually legit touchdown favorites in this game, which is going to have a key ripple effect throughout player props for tonight. Also, a bit of value in the over, which does mean I can at least have some interest in the touchdown markets for tonight. We're not going to get to one that I feel really, really great about, but to me, I'm not passing on the traditional markets here in this game. But again, the key thing for me is I think the Broncos deserve to be as favored as they are in this one. That's going to lead me to my first prop of the night. And that's actually going to be a negative prop. That's going to be on Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is a guy who we just saw on Thursday night last week, where he was able to come through with 2 touchdowns in the snow. And it was really fun to see a guy who's gone through what he's gone through come back and have that success in that game. But his rushing plus receiving prop for tonight is sitting at 63.5 yards. That is high, and I think, frankly, it's a bit too high, and I want to take the under on the rushing plus receiving for Chubb right now. That's actually a number he has not gotten to yet this year. His max so far for rushing plus receiving is 60 yards. That came against the Steelers, and that came in the snow. And if you watched last night's game between the Bills and the Niners, you saw how tough it was to stop the run when you can go really fast in a straight line when you're in the snow. So even that number may have been a bit high, but it was also a positive game script, at least a neutral game script for Chubb in that game. And there's no guarantee he gets that here. When the Browns have fallen behind since Jerome Ford came back, and this time with Chubb being there as well, we've seen a shift towards Jerome Ford and away from Nick Chubb in those setups. So we get the Broncos favored by almost a touchdown here. It is a great defense in the Broncos. And I think that what that does is it gives us multiple decently realistic paths to an under on Nick Chubb for tonight. The first one is he could just be ineffective because this Broncos defense is very, very good. That's route number one. Route number two is if the Browns fall behind, we're probably going to see a skew towards Jerome Ford in a negative game script. So that's also a path to an under for Nick Chubb. And he also could just see his role just be fine overall and wind up getting around this number, similar to what we saw against the Steelers, where he went under this number despite the fact his role is pretty good there. So I like bets that have multiple paths to cashing. And this one does to me with the Nick Chubb under. So as unfun as it is, given that Nick Chubb is a guy we want to root for sure, I do think the best route to betting Nick Chubb in this game is taking the under 63.5 rushing plus receiving yards. That is minus 114 over at FanDuel Sportsbook. The other key dynamic for the Browns in this game is that there's no Cedric Tillman, and that vacates a bunch of targets because Tillman has been a pretty key piece in this passing offense over the past couple of games. Now, it could turn us towards Jerry Jeudy. It is a Jerry Jeudy revenge game after all, but he's going to see some Patrick Surtain the second on the outside in this game. And Surtain is a corner I actually fear. There are not a ton of corners who check those boxes right now, but Surtain is one. That could push us towards Elijah Moore. Moore will be in the slot. His baseline prop, 45.5. He has a better individual matchup than Jerry Jeudy does in this one. Instead, I think my preferred outlet for this one is going to be David Njoku. His baseline receiving yardage prop is 46.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook, which is not a bad number. Because if you look at the games since the Amari Cooper trade, Njoku is actually second on the team in targets in that time at a 20.5% target share. Only guy ahead of him is Tillman, who will not play in this game. He's actually ahead of both Jeudy and Moore in that span. And Njoku hasn't gotten a ton of deep targets, so I can't go too crazy with the alt markets. We're not looking at like 80 plus receiving yards, but I do think we can go towards him at 60 plus receiving yards, which is currently plus 172 at FanDuel Sportsbook. That's a number that Njoku has gotten to in half of the starts that Jameis Winston has made. Got there in the game that Jameis entered late for Deshaun Watson as well. And now you take Tillman out of the fold and put Jerry Jeudy in a tough individual matchup. I think it's pretty fair to expect Njoku's production to go up here when you consider all of those factors. So again, plus 172 to get a 60 plus receiving yards. I think that makes a lot of sense given all those factors we just discussed. So I'm buying into Njoku here. And I think that he is one positive prop I like in the Browns for tonight's game. As far as touchdown props, I also do not mind Njoku. He's a bit longer there. His touchdown odds at FanDuel Sportsbook currently sitting, I believe they were plus 230, plus 260 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. So don't mind Njoku there. Again, if you want to buy in the Browns, Njoku, my preferred touchdown bet as well, plus 260. But because I got the Broncos so heavily favored in my model, I'm okay skipping that one and sticking with just the receiving yardage number for Njoku for tonight. Another player who is really good for alt markets is Courtland Sutton. And I want to buy in him as well because Sutton's getting a lot of downfield work right now. He's averaging 2.8 deep targets per game across the entire season. And Bo Nix has been pretty good on those deep threats. He's been getting more aggressive recently as well. If you look at Sutton's past 5 games, where he's been getting better work, that's after the Saints game where he had his shutdown coverage from Marshawn Lattimore, he has gotten 90 plus receiving yards in 3 of those past 5 games, which correlates with where they've kind of let Nix let it rip a bit more than what he was doing previously. You see at FanDuel Sportsbook that Sutton right now plus 240 to get 90 plus yards, despite the fact, again, he's gotten there in 3 of the past 5 games. I just kind of feel like he and Nix have developed a really nice chemistry recently, and I want to bet on that. The Browns defense is very good. They've got some talented corners, but they have let up 5 receivers to get 90 plus receiving yards against them. One of those is A.J. Brown, a very physical wide receiver, similar to what Sutton brings. And I think it does make sense to give it a swing here. So I do like Sutton plus 235 to get us 90 plus receiving yards in this game, given how well he and Nick have gelled, the downfield work he's getting, and the fact that just in general, it does seem like they've developed better chemistry recently. He's been hitting this mark at a pretty decent clip. So like Cortland Sutton, 90 plus receiving yards at plus 240 over at FanDuel Sportsbook. That's going to bring us to our same game parlay for tonight. Again, the individual numbers, I like Sutton 90 plus 240, and Njoku 60 plus at plus 172. And then taking the Nick Chubb under rushing plus receiving 63.5 is minus 114. For our same game parlay for tonight, I want to kind of lean into what we were discussing before with the game script working against Nick Chubb, where if we assume the Broncos get ahead, what would happen in that scenario? That would lead to a Chubb under 63.5 rushing plus receiving at minus 114. It'd probably also lead to more work for Jerome Ford. Mentioned before that Ford's snap rate did spike in the game where the Browns fell pretty far behind, and we saw Chubb basically just not play in the second half of that game. So I want to go towards Jerome Ford's receiving yardage mark. That is 12.5 over his minus 113. He's gone over this mark in only one of his 3 games since returning. But again, if we're assuming they fall behind, we assume it's a tough matchup for Judy on the outside. There's no Tillman. Could funnel more work out towards Ford's way. So we'll take over 12.5 and minus 113. That also lead to a lot of passing, and I think that Njoku would be the guy who would benefit because we know Winston can move the football even in a negative game script. So I do want to buy into a positive prop elsewhere on the Browns as well. We'll go with Njoku, just the baseline prop there, over 46.5 at minus 113. So again, this is kind of just making an assumption here that the Broncos do kind of play to what the bookmakers have said, and they pull ahead in this game and kind of put the Browns in a negative script. If they do that, I like all 3 of those bets. And again, those bets are Nick Chubb under 63.5 rushing plus receiving yards, Jerome Ford over 12.5 receiving yards, under the assumption he gets a higher snap rate if the Browns are trailing, and then Njoku over 46.5 receiving yards. That adds up to plus 487 at FanDuel Sportsbook for the same game parlay. And again, all those bets do correlate because we get the Browns in a negative game stretch, which forces more passes and likely a lower snap rate for Nick Chubb. So do like this one if we assume that the Broncos do catch a lead, which my model thinks, the betting markets think as well. Feel pretty good about that one there as our final bet of the night. That is all that we have here for today on covering the spread. As mentioned, we're back with you once again tomorrow. We're going to go through game by game across the NFL Week 14 spreads and totals, letting you know initial bets that I like at FanDuel Sportsbook for this week. To get that show as it is posted, subscribe to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast, but also subscribe on this YouTube page and enable notifications to get notified as we go live Monday through Friday. If you got any questions for me, I am on X at JimSannes. I am also on Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets on Monday Night Football. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down NFL Week 14. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.